Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show here on the road at Treefort Music Festival 2023. And the other night I stumbled into a bar and wound up seeing this band that absolutely blew my mind away called Guava Tree, and their drummer is my next guest, Caleb Hayes. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, baby.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Can you talk about, how sound came into your life originally? And what I mean by that is, like, when you realized that that was the frequency that you were going to be able to operate on as a profession, but also for peace.
I remember music having like a deep impact on me, when I was a kid. I can vaguely remember.
Project your voice a little out, yeah.
I can vaguely remember, hearing music in church, and then just remember listening to music with my parents and by myself, and I think as a teenager, music kind of became who I was. It became a part of I had a sense of ownership of what made me feel good.
Sure. Did you feel like maybe it was your purpose in life?
Totally, yeah. At some point, I got involved in music programs in grade school, and I just remember playing the recorder, and all that kind of stuff,
sick.
Jingle Bells and all this stuff. And that was a very it's crazy to think about now, but it was very some nostalgia about just thinking back in those times.
Did you? This is the thing I want you to talk about. Is when did you begin to sort of your natural time feel? Did you find you were leaning more on the ride cymbal to keep time, or on the top of the kit? To me, there's an emphasis now for whatever reason. Bass drums, it's just the pulsating rhythm. It almost sounds like machine gun fire sometimes, as opposed to, you go back to Philly Joe, some of those masters. Again, they were playing certain types of music, post bop and things like that, but they were dancing all over the kit. And I just wanted you to talk about how you learned to dance on the kit, if that's in fact the way you look at it. Because to me, the other night, it seemed like you had 8 arms going, and limbs, and that, to me, that's how you let the body dance.
Totally. Yeah, I think at first it was, very much like a dance, to where it's you don't really care what you're doing as a kid. You pick up an instrument and then it's just
you don't know any better.
Yeah, you don't know any better. There's no expectations to sound good or whatever. But to me, I remember playing a lot of rock music and indie music and stuff like that. Where it was I remember playing these tom grooves, these songs, and just feeling in another world. And then I remember then the hi-hat and ride got involved just out of curiosity.
Just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really recall, because I was I think when I picked up drums, I was about 10 years old, so that's over half my life ago, so it's kind of hard to remember, but I just remember those tom grooves, man. I just remember really rocking with that,
Can you talk about where you guys are at? I was actually stunned to find out yesterday that your band, Guava Tree, reconvened for the first time in quite a minute, because one of the cats was in India. How did this band come together?
This band came together out of
Was it a band before Caleb Hayes?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Mowgli and those guys, I mean, that's his project, really. He had a whole rotating crew of members, and I remember when he first moved to Utah, he started making music, and I started to pay attention to it, and it was kind of this magical thing where it's I kind of knew I was gonna be a part of it somehow, or it was always a band I wanted to be a part of,
What was it? You aside from the grooves themselves, it was just the vibe that you were getting off on?
Yeah, I just think, he's a very brilliant songwriter, and he's very catchy and different, and
Dude, so let me ask you, as a musician, to me, the lyrics that he's saying, even in that song yesterday, he wasn't reinventing the wheel. It was just his delivery. The messages were succinct, but most of the brilliant songwriters, it wasn't overly complicated lyrics, you know? It was brilliant. You tell me how you look at his songwriting process. Feed
good.
me so I grow. Feed me. I don't know if you know, if you ever, I don't know that tune that he played yet.
He showed me it once,
Dude,
like,
it's like he was saying, I was listening to it, I was stumbling home last night, and I was like, well, there's nothing like revolutionary in this, but it just feels good, and I love it.
it's just like, just being true to yourself and bringing like your personality into the music, and just like, I think a lot of it is just being inspired by like everybody around you. There's like he's part of a really beautiful scene out in Logan, Utah, and like there's tons of people like making original music, and it's like a great environment for
Dude,
that.
I am dude, you have to tell me a little bit about, because when I think of Logan or Utah in general, I think hip place for bands to come through, but you're telling me Logan is an indigenous musical creative society. There's a bunch of cats out there.
Yeah, I mean, every time I've come out there, the thing about like, me trying to describe is like musical process is like I've only really like flew out, like this is the first time I've actually been out here consistently, and like I've only really been on like one like full size like tour with them, which was like a couple weeks, so I'm still kind of like catching up with him in a way. And
Dude, that's beautiful. I did not know that.
But but like every time I come out to Logan, Utah, there's just like there's just more and more bands that I'm becoming aware of. And like at first, like when I first heard Guava Tree, like the stuff he was doing, I was kind of closed-minded about the scene. Like I just kind of like saw it as like a hippie, like kind of indie music, place.
Barefoot hippies,
And I was more into like the jazz fusion and funk, so I was on that grind, But the more I come out there, like I'm seeing like these bands starting to like incorporate those elements, and I'm like, yeah, this is like.
Well, wait a second. Hold on a second. What about the idea that you wound up magically in the band and bringing that funk fusion into the Guava Tree?
That's what's exciting.
If you're bringing those tastes into that's what music is a gumbo. It's not just chicken. You don't just have just chicken for a
Totally.
meal. It's you got the beans and the rice and the salsa, and the point is, you're bringing some of your things that you get off on, and and that was evident the other night, because other drummers with that music maybe a little too. Anyway, you were just swinging. I wanted you to just talk about that concept. Do you feel like, is there any way for cats to learn how to really burn and swing in the academy? I mean, you go back to Berklee School of Music 40 years ago, and those cats were in classes, yes, but they were basically on the bandstand 6 nights a week. They could have been in strip clubs, they could have been on, big band, but they were learning their craft. And now I just wonder, like, in the academy, can you really can you get that direct application? Like, did you have a lot of gigs when you were at Musicians Institute?
Not really. A bit. There are a few like kind of factors that played into it, Like,
Sure. No. So
Yeah.
I guess the question is, how did you learn to apply what you were learning in the academy when you were there before COVID, if at all?
Totally. I feel like I didn't really learn how to apply it until I started playing live.
Exactly. So tell me about some of those experiences, those live experiences.
Yeah. So, just like building a foundation at school, and then like after COVID, I moved back to Washington, and like that's when I kind of like started to like experiment with like spirituality and just like presence, and because I spent a lot of time alone and like out in nature. Like I really found like I found there to be music there, like
It's so beautiful,
like out
man.
in the
Yeah, it's great.
out on walks and the trees and the birds and all that. And then like I would just like bring my drums. I'd just bring my drums outside because I wasn't allowed to play them in my house. So I just set them up outside in the field and just like play and just take everything in. Like before, like at school, like I was like we talked about earlier, like just how like when you first start out, it's very like innocent and like beautiful.
And you don't even know if there are rules or no rules. Yeah.
And then like after a while, like as you grow up and like become a teenager and a young adult, like your ego kind of gets in the way, and like you kind of like start to prioritize, like
Get jaded, yeah.
Yeah, you prioritize like sounding good or like being cool, like rather than like just expressing yourself and just like just being that, So Guava Tree's like the first band where like I really feel like I can like. It's like they're all just like healthy people and like healthy musicians, and like they're helping me like, you know, they're helping me find my voice, you know, and it really feels like just like it really feels like a journey, you know, like there's times like when we went on tour where it's like how I felt about my day, like actually like, you know,
infused into the
like how I
music. And
felt
that's what it is,
yeah,
man.
how I felt about myself, you know, like really affected how I played. Like at specific days, like if I came in like all anxious and nervous and like socially anxious, you know, like I like kind of fell more into like, you know, just like trying to impress people, or like, you know, maybe play some phony things that, you
Dude,
know.
it's so good to hear you say that, because it's just like this, like the bath of nerves that we all have in our own day. But in the music, I mean, that's people try to figure out how do you get your own individual sound on your instrument, and it's your own life experiences. So if you've grown up, you know, if you don't have a lot of experience, you're going to kind of probably wind up sounding a lot like somebody else. Do you feel like you've developed your own individual sound on the kit?
It's really weird because like I feel like I've like always had it, you know, especially
absolutely.
in the last few years, you know, like after like developing foundation, like living more, like I've developed it. Now it's just like, you know, recognizing it. Like I feel like the biggest like thing that holds me back is just like kind of like viewing myself as like, you know, pushing my greatness into the future rather than like just feeling it now. You know, I
Projection
feel like,
is, I mean, I talk about my brother, it doesn't matter if it's relationships, it doesn't matter if it's whatever it is, this obsession in our society of projecting forward instead of, so if you can find that compass, I mean, music is a great way for me to stay in the present. It's one of the only things that helps.
Yeah.
So, you know, but, you know, the idea there is, it is the forever journey. So the idea that you're going to like learn everything there is to know, that's never going to happen. You're going to, you know, you're going to be older, you're still going to be learning new things about music. But where do you feel like you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone the most in order to grow? As like I talk, you know, Mowgli was interesting because it's hard when you're an artist and you have to wear 8 caps. Before, the record companies would handle all the promotion. I mean, for bigger names, I mean, but they did all the publicity. You could go out on a 40-city tour, Joni Mitchell, and lose money, and it wouldn't matter because the records at that time made so much money for the company. So and the artist could focus on the art itself. And I feel like there's so many distractions today that take away from that creative process. So he was talking more about the business side of it, you know, trying to grow in that sense. But for you, where do you want to grow them? Where do you know you have to push yourself to grow?
You know, like I feel like this past year, you know, I've really like started to develop like a flow, you know, where it's like I know how to like get myself to where I need to be, you know, and it's just like about like getting myself there, you know, or like doing the things I need to do to just stay healthy and like stay consistent, you know, and like, you know, just making just keeping everything balanced, you know. Like I feel like there's the distractions and all that like are something to watch out for, you know, like social media or like, you know, like or like just like self-concern and all those kind of things that we all go through, you know, just like trying to like maintain like a sense of self-love and all that, you know.
Caleb, you're taking the insecure path, man. Being a musician is definitely, but it's the most gratifying path.
Totally.
And it's the most healing path. So before we go, why don't you just lay out for a minute, all right? Just let people hear what you got to hear. Wake the neighborhood up and just polyrhythms everywhere.
Cool. Yeah.
It's such an honor to hang with you, brother. And this will not be our last time, all right?
Really grateful. Thank you.
Much love. Yep. Caleb Hayes, love you, brother. See you
you,
soon,
man.
baby. All right.
Thank you.
It's the Jake Feinberg Show. See you later.